I was going to reenact the famous scene where Jimmy Stewart dived into the bay trying to commit suicide before he was saved by that giant rabbit in It's a Wonderful Life. But this rusty gate's preventing me, and threat of a fine. So unfortunately I won't be diving into the San Francisco Bay today. This bridge has been in a lot of famous movies. The best Star Trek movie, Star Trek 4.
Spock,
Yes.
about those colorful metaphors that we've discussed, I don't think you should try using them anymore.
Why not?
Oh, it's great to smell the Pacific again. Sorry. And the best James Bond movie, A View to a Kill. Actually, no. The best James Bond movie is Casino Royale. Not the new one, the old one with Peter Sellers and Woody Allen. With this theme song. It was also in Vertigo, obviously. Alfred Hitchcock's great film. Although North by Northwest is a lot better. In fact, I wish I was at Mount Rushmore, not here. They say all roads lead to Rome, and that's very true about this bridge, as you'll just see right now.
Rome wasn't built in a day, but it fell on one. The day it fell on was Monday, the 4th of September, 476, which was upsetting because the Romans loved Monday. They invented it. They named it Moon Day. If only they had copyrighted it. The Roman Empire had been decaying for a long time, but the straw that broke the camel's back was an invasion of Visigoths, riding camelback and wielding burning straw. Ancient Rome's emperor at the time wasn't ancient at all. Romulus Augustus was a 16-year-old boy, suffering from teen angst and worrying about music lessons. He was learning the fiddle, which had been invented the year before. So Romulus fiddled as Rome burnt. Fortunately, the fiddling and smoke awoke Praetor Rathian, the emperor's second in command. Rathian was a ruthless military general. He had won the war against the Dacians, the war against the Gauls, the war against the war, and the war against protesters against so many wars. He also liked grapes and long walks on the Tiber. Praetor Rathian's course of action was to retreat to Rome's sister city, Camelot in Britannia. Led by Romulus Augustus, Praetor Rathian mustered up a legion of soldiers and sacks of grapes, escaping down into the secret underground aqueduct that flowed them northwest to the English Channel. Crossing the channel to Britannia was simple as it was low tide. Just west of the former Roman province of Londinium, the Romans were sobered by a run-in with displaced female refugees and a few scattered knights of the Round Table. Like Rome, Camelot had also fallen on September the 4th. These things tend to happen in threes, and 3 empires did collapse on the 4th of September 476. The Romans, the British, and the Fijian kingdom of Rocco T. Rosso entered the time of the devil when Tongans invaded them. Fiji picked a bad day to fall, as most historians are too occupied mouth-watering over Rome and Camelot. And we won't be talking about them either. The Round Table Knights had lost their kingdom and their table to Kineticans, who battled them with kinetic energy. Now they were all that was left of Camelot, a dozen fair beauties and 4 lame knights. Sir Rick, Sir Larry, Sir Dave and Sir Doug. Gone then was Praetor Rathian's brilliant plan to join forces with King Arthur's army and stage a return attack on the Visigoths. The only thing Rick, Larry, Dave and Doug would be staging an attack on was the unemployment line. However, the default Britannian ruler, Sir Doug, had a brilliant plan of his own that couldn't wait to be shared with the Romans. The young knight was leading a quest to the island of Ireland, where the great and powerful Merlin the magician had fallen down a cave and couldn't get out. The lame knights of the stolen table would rescue the wizard and with his great powers retake the kingdom of Camelot. Although it had been many centuries since Rome's reach had extended as far as Ireland, Praetor Baratheon entertained the idea of using Merlin to retake the Roman Empire. Well, he did more than entertain the idea. He took the idea out for a candlelight dinner, invited it back home for coffee, and then the friends, Romans and countrymen washed up on the shores of Dublin, meaning Black Pool. On the raft journey across St. George's Channel, Romulus Augustus had fallen head over heels for Edith, one of the Arthurian fair maidens. The fall was a ploy of Romulus's to get Edith to help him out of the ocean and back into the raft. But before she could, Romulus discovered why the channel was named after St. George, when a sea dragon dived up from the murky depths and bit the Emperor's arm clean off. But at least this caught Edith's attention, and she spent the rest of the rafty ride nursing Romulus back to health. Now, on land, Romulus might have suspected that Praetor Baratheon had taken over his command and was now leading everybody. By the way, he had taken over his command and was now leading everybody. But Romulus was too busy skipping heartbeats, in love with the fair Edith. Of course, it probably wasn't love at all that was causing his heartbeat to be so irregular, but rather the loss of blood from his missing right arm. Soon enough, the Roman Camelot allies arrived at a rocky terrain with a narrow passage running deep under the rocky ground. "The cave!" the most dim-witted knight shouted. They all entered. Although the cave was dark, there was enough light to reveal the absence of anyone named Merlin. Instead, stalactites pointed down at a pool of dark-shaded ruby liquid. They were not alone in the cave, and with the flap of wings, 4 large cave toucans flew into awareness. None of them had ever seen a toucan before, except for Sir Dave, who had spotted one in a nightmare once. That is to say, a toucan spotted him, lifted him up, and dropped him in a volcano. Dave wisely decided to keep quiet about this prior encounter. The knights and Baratheon were all about to start pointing fingers at who was to blame for travelling all the way to Ireland to find a cave that Merlin wasn't in, when the 4 toucans circled them and in unison dived synchronously into the centre of the black pool, vanishing from sight. The cave pond then started rotating anti-sundial wise, turning it into a vast whirlpool. After performing various experiments and accidents and experimental accidents and accidental experiments, yes, these are all different, the group reached an agreement on what the pool was. But just to make sure the knights weren't just aimlessly nodding their heads in agreement, Baratheon pulled out his abacus and described the phenomenon in layman's terms. The pool's ingredients of barley, hops, yeast and fish cause a dimensional current to open when it spins anti-sundial wise. The strange, colourful giant birds originate from a faraway land. They travelled through this black pool, which Baratheon named a Roman ring. The Roman ring is a traversable passageway held open by the rotating barley, hops, yeast and fish, creating a spherical shell of exotic matter. Passing through the Roman ring would deposit a person at another place in the universe. Being half adventurous and half followers, the group decided to dive into the black pool, without hesitation, like fools. The dark liquid stung the place where Romulus's arm used to be, but as his other arm was wrapped around Edith, he didn't mind too much. The whirlpool accelerated past the speed of light, but this was only a guess as the black pool lived up to its name by not allowing light in. So it can only be surmised that it accelerated past the speed of dark. Regurgitation on the shores of a rocky bay leaves out some of the romance of the group's arrival to the other side of the Roman ring. As Romulus suspected would happen, Baratheon made himself king of the new Romalot Empire. But that was cool with Romulus as he was in love with Edith. After charting the stars, the Romalots figured they were on the opposite side of the northern hemisphere. Without migrating Visigoths or encroaching Germania, the Romalot Empire was free to thrive. They built the Palace of Baratheon in the centre of town, and then they built a Golden Gate bridge to the mainland. The large columns, the arches, and the cable suspension are all consistent with late Roman design. With the grapes the Romalots introduced to the new continent, they were able to plant great wineries in the warm climate. The technology of New Roma was far superior to that of the rest of the world. They invented the flying car before the ground car, built the first iPod before the first radio, Bluetooth, constructed from the tooth of a toucan before the telephone was invented, and the majestic city stood for 1,300 years. Until a Spanish war party arrived on November 2nd, 1759. The Spanish realized they did not stand a chance against the vastly futuristically advanced Romulan Empire. Their leader, Conquistador Hernando Cortez's life flashed before his eyes as the Romulans fired a torpedo towards him and his men sitting on top of the bridge. The section of his life that flashed him the most was that of his invasion of the Aztec Empire a few years back and a few miles south when Cortez wore a younger man's frilly shirt. Now he felt fate was giving him a taste of his own medicine in the form of a torpedo. But no sooner had the Golden Gate been hit, another momentous occurrence was taking place back in Dublin, Ireland. A fellow named Arthur Guinness had tapped an underground natural deposit of barley, hops, yeast and fish at St James Gate. His activities destroyed the anti-sundial rotation of the Black Pool, and the Roman ring was reversed, causing all of the Romulan Empire to blow away with the sea breeze. Guinness is powerful that way. Small Roman ringed wormholes do appear if you stir a glass anti-sundial wise, allowing you the drinker to experience a small dimensional shift. This is probably why it has remained popular for so long. Meanwhile, the Spanish settled the town of San Francisco, where the Romulan Empire once thrived. The only trace of their existence is the vast Californian wineries, the Golden Gate itself, and the Palace of Var-Rathian, which is said to be haunted by the ghost of the Praetor, who still likes grapes and long walks by the bay.
Well, that was fun, wasn't it?